It is quite a read when you go to CBSSports.com and see the number of coaches that were interviewed anonymously casting votes on who's the most overrated and underrated head coaches in college football. And the man who put this all together for CBS Sports, college football analyst Chip Patterson here on the show. How you doing, Chip?
I'm doing all right, Rich. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. So let's get into this. How many coaches did you speak to for this piece?
I personally did not speak to all of them. This is a 4 or 5 person effort, and
Okay.
our total was somewhere between 24 and 30. And I think that our final claim was that it was 1/5. I don't know who said what. We divvied up the questions. I think we asked about 10 questions this year. We wrote stories on 5 or 6 of them, one of them being the overrated and underrated. And I do think that it's important, Rich, to let people know that, college football coaches, notoriously paranoid, a lot of them told me no. A lot of them, had no interest in participating with this. So put yourself in the mindset of a coach who has agreed to talk some smack about rival coaches. And I think that that's like as we start to really parse through these responses, you need to remember that this coach has definitely come into this knowing exactly what they're doing, getting ready to anonymously trash a rival to a national outlet.
Right. And so the most overrated coaches in college football, according to your poll, Willie Taggart and James Franklin at 20%. Why do you think that?
You know what's funny?
What did you glean there, Chip?
I think that if you asked media members, myself included, to list some of the rising stars in the profession, it would probably match an overrated poll of current college football coaches, because every college football coach is going to think that any adoration from the media, from someone outside of the close-knit coaching community, that if they're getting this adoration and all of a sudden I'm not, well then, yeah, I thought that the overrated portion of this brought out what I would allege to even be borderline jealousy. And I thought that the underrated portion of this, we saw a lot of coaches pay homage to a coach who has maybe helped them out along the way.
Yeah, the most underrated coach in college football, David Shaw and Chris Peterson at 12%. Who were the coaches that made both lists, Chip?
Oh, we had David Shaw made both lists. And I think that one of the quotes that we used from that is that, a lot of the, ways to be complimentary of Shaw have to do with the way he has positioned this Stanford program. Obviously, Jim Harbaugh doing so much to get it into a great place at the top of college football, winning that Orange Bowl. David Shaw, what he's been able to do is modernize it. And a lot of that's been on the recruiting trail. And so I think that being able to take a school like Stanford with its football history and put it into a position where, was it 4 of the last 6 Pac-12 North titles have gone to the Cardinal?
Right.
That is crazy to think about. And so where you were and where you are now has media members and members of the football community like myself, putting a lot of praise on David Shaw. And I remember one of the quotes for David Shaw being overrated was more just that he gets a little bit too much fluff and headlines, is what this one coach thought.
Chip Patterson of CBS Sports joining me here. Tom Herman and Kirk Ferentz wound up on both lists as well. Tom Herman, I guess he's overrated. Why? Because he got the Texas job, and he's underrated. Why? Because he got the Texas job. That's the interesting thing right there.
Isn't that kind of what you would read from Willie Taggart? Just a little bit of bordering on jealousy of is like, wow, that was a very quick move. And I think that what the coaches don't understand is that the hires are being made by athletic directors and university presidents that are probably thinking as much, if not more, on what a certain coach would be able to lead them to. I have no beef to pick with Tom Herman. I will say that I will never forget him mocking Missouri quarterback Drew Lock in the bowl game. And mocking the celebration of him. I took note of that for Tom Herman. But in general, I think Tom Herman did such a great job at Houston at very quickly creating a culture that motivated not only the football program, but the whole Houston community. And anytime when you're asking a college football coach to be a leader of young men, anytime you're able to see that motivational skill, that is something that I'm going to award as him being a solid head coach. I think Tom Herman, while he might appear on both lists from these peers, I think that right now he is rightly rated with a bright future.
Chip Patterson here on the show. So there's 5 other coaches that were lumped together as the most overrated coach in college football, and we could see lower down that 2 coaches that received a vote as to being overrated, Jimbo Fisher being one, and then Nick Saban being the other. Were you the one who interviewed the one who said Nick Saban was overrated, or was that a colleague of yours?
It was a colleague of mine, and I didn't even get a chance to see.
Come on.
What coach it was.
Chip.
It wasn't. I will tell you that some of the interview responses I got were definitely targeted attacks at a rival, but they were not the comment about Nick Saban, which felt so. I didn't hear it. But I read
called him a cheater. Called him a cheater. Chip called him a cheater. Called him a cheater.
Doesn't sit real well with me. The only way that I could sort of put myself in the headspace of the coach who might have said that is if they took this a little lightly and certainly didn't realize the way that it was going to be taken in publication.
Who are the other 3 coaches?
That was a coach. That was the coach who used the anonymity of the activity and ran a little bit far with it.
I think so. But who are the other coaches that were that were viewed as overrated that didn't get listed here? Do you have that information?
Let's see.
You're looking at your notes right there because it says 5 coaches. Willie Taggart, James Franklin, Kirk Ferentz, Lane Kiffin. Come on now, he's at Florida Atlantic right now. He's at Boca.
Yeah.
He's in Boca. The guy's getting.
But the quote about Lane Kiffin is, what was it? If you're born on third base, that's great, but don't act like you hit a triple.
I mean, he's Lane Kiffin, man. I mean, I think he's rated right where people rate him. So you don't know the other coaches were specifically?
No, I'm sorry, Rich. I don't have the full database. I wasn't even allowed access to all these answers. The secrecy through all this really put me in a tough position.
Got it.
I'm happy to be speaking to you now about it.
Right. So last one for you. Do you have any information on what's going on with Ohio State? Know what to expect? An announcement coming this week for sure to put everything to bed as best they can in Columbus?
I don't know where have you settled on this? Because I'm in a position where I know, number one, throughout all of these twists and turns, don't ever doubt Brett McMurphy's reporting. That is just like a stone cold. That is something that I hold true, and I believe that he has done a lot of work and a lot of hard work that other journalists and writers haven't done. So, in terms of the sideshow of all this, I have mostly leaned with Brett, a former colleague, somebody who I would call a friend who's helped me out a lot throughout my young time in this industry. But at this point, I'm in a place of feeling like I'm making a prediction, and the way that this is going to break, who knows? But my prediction is that we'll have some admission of fault for Urban Meyer's comments at Big Ten Media Days. And, Rich, I'm not expecting much admission of fault beyond that from the head football coach. And there might be a punishment that comes with lying to the media at Big Ten Media Days, but I don't think that's a fireable offense. And so I keep coming back to this place where I do think that there will be some amount of punishment and admission of fault, but it will not extend to Urban Meyer admitting that there were any missteps on his part for his handling of allegations of domestic violence against Zach Smith. Has Ohio State obtained enough information in its investigation to suggest otherwise? I think that might be difficult, and so it makes me feel a little uncomfortable. But I'm still feeling like we might see Urban Meyer. Was their 5th game of the season is against Penn State? I think we might see him on the sideline for that game.
I think we'll see him on the sideline the week before against Tulane. I think if they find any wrongdoing that is not fireable for an offense, or an offense that will have some sort of a lawsuit, that there'll be some sort of a suspension and he'll be back on the sideline then. Chip, I appreciate the time. Thanks for calling in.
Absolutely. Y'all be well.
You got it. It's Chip Patterson here on CBS Sports.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.